Welcome to this explainer. Today, I'm going to be stepping into the shoes of an exercise controller to guide you through what is arguably the most critical, yet somehow most frequently overlooked, phase of the 2026 Beacon exercise. Now, for 8 hours, you're going to be thrust right into the middle of a simulated, catastrophic magnitude 8.8 earthquake scenario. We're talking infrastructure collapse, a complete internet blackout, the whole shebang. But here's the reality check. Surviving the simulation? That's really only half the battle. As you'll see, the finish line is actually where the real work begins. We need to talk about what happens the moment the clock runs out, because your role in the evaluation phase is absolutely as critical as your role in the response itself.
So, throughout the exercise, you'll be relying entirely on auxiliary communications, right? Ham radios, field units, basically whatever you can muster up to build a common operating picture. But I want you to picture this for a second. The clock strikes exactly 1600 Pacific Daylight Time. Suddenly, every single radio goes silent. The high-stress simulated chaos just stops. Now, as an exercise controller, I need you to understand that this sudden silence absolutely does not mean your day is over. In fact, it marks the precise moment where the absolute most important part of the exercise evaluation officially begins.
Okay, let's dive right into our roadmap for today. We'll cover 1. The 1600 exercise, stop. 2. The immediate hot wash protocol. 3. The power of documentation. 4. Required ICS forms. And finally, 5. Real-world impact.
Starting off with Section 1, the 16 o'clock exercise, stop. Pencils down. Our first massive milestone is that 1600 exercise stop. This is a really fundamental shift, both chronologically and psychologically. You're transitioning from this high-stress, fast-paced simulation where lives are, theoretically anyway, on the line, into a highly focused, constructive period of evaluation. If you take a look at the timeline, you'll see we have structured modules running all day. We move from impact assessment to mutual aid into resource status updates. But look right there at 1600 PDT. At exactly 1600, all exercise activity must absolutely cease. And I mean immediately. Even if you're right in the middle of sending a critical radio message, or maybe you haven't totally finished your assigned tasks for that module, it doesn't matter. Pencils down. We do this because the designated time for the final evaluation modules is strictly non-negotiable.
Moving right along to Section 2, the immediate hot wash protocol, capturing fresh observations.
So you might be wondering, what exactly is a hot wash? Well, it's an immediate, facilitator-led discussion that we hold the second the simulation portion concludes, directly following the 1600 to 1700 module. And the most important word in that whole definition is immediate. Why do we insist on doing this right away? Because, let's be honest, human memory is incredibly fragile, especially after a super stressful simulated disaster. By conducting this hot wash immediately, we capture your initial observations while the entire experience is totally fresh in your mind. It prevents all those vital, nuanced little insights from just evaporating into thin air.
Let's break down exactly who does what during this session. Players, you're up first. You're there to share your raw, ground-level observations. Tell us what worked and, just as importantly, what totally didn't. Evaluators, you guys are intensely documenting this feedback to pinpoint those key improvement items. And for us as controllers, our job is strictly to facilitate. We're going to ask the guiding questions, what happened versus what was supposed to happen, but we explicitly do not inject our own opinions. We really have to avoid contaminating the player's natural discussion. And remember, everyone, the focus here is entirely on systems and procedures. This is a constructive environment for sure. It is definitely not the time for personal criticism.
Now, through this hot wash, we are assessing two very different but equally crucial elements. On one hand, we're evaluating the cold, hard technical performance of the communication systems. Basically, did the radios actually work when the internet went down? But on the flip side, we are also evaluating interagency coordination objectives, and that is the human element. How well did all the different departments and jurisdictions actually communicate and work together to request mutual aid when their everyday tools were stripped away?
Let's jump to Section 3, the power of documentation, hard evidence.
So once all those great verbal insights are captured in the hot wash, the narrative shifts completely over to hard evidence. Look, you can have the most insightful, brilliant verbal debrief in the history of the world, but in emergency management, the golden rule is, if it isn't written down, it didn't happen, period.
Which brings up a question every single participant needs to understand. Why are accurate records absolutely mandatory after the debrief? Why must you gather up every single piece of paper and hand it over to the documentation unit before you head home?
And this brilliantly illustrates why. Thorough documentation directly impacts real-world applications in three massive ways. First up, operational recovery. Detailed records literally justify the massive resource and financial decisions we have to make during future disasters. Second is technical history. These logs provide vital data that shows exactly how our systems performed under extreme stress. And third, credentialing. Your completed paperwork actually tracks and proves your professional emergency management requirements. So yeah, your exercise paperwork holds real-world power.
Which leads us to Section 4, Required ICS Forms, Building the Operational Memory.
To actually harness that power, we have to standardize the data. That means strictly utilizing the Standard Incident Command System, or ICS forms. Here's your definitive list of the required ICS forms that every participant must submit. You'll be using the ICS 214 activity log, the 205A communications list, the absolutely crucial 309 communications log, along with the 217A for resource availability and the 213 for general messages. Now, I totally get it. In the heat of a simulated crisis, filling out logs feels, well, tedious. But these specific forms are literally the foundational building blocks of real disaster readiness.
Let's look a little closer at the ICS 214 activity log. It is way more than just a diary of what you did today. If you document your activities accurately, meaning you note exactly when an action was taken, what specific difficulties popped up, and what decisions were made, you are building a clear, irrefutable picture of the incident. Think about it like this. Explicitly noting the exact minute a generator failed and exactly what resources you used to replace it provides the exact documentation you need to justify FEMA reimbursement down the line. In a real-world disaster, this precise operational memory is exactly what government agencies use to justify recovery funding and life-saving pivots. And during the most intense periods of the exercise, getting this data collected becomes even more critical. Take the 1400 to 1600 time frame, which is Module 3 Resource Status Update. This is when radio traffic is absolutely peaking, and resource allocation is make or break. The documentation generated right here, specifically your ICS 309 communications log and your ICS 217A resource availability worksheet, that captures the vital technical history of how your systems and logistics held up. If those specific forms aren't turned in, that entire 2-hour block of intense effort is basically lost to history. Poof, gone.
Wrapping things up with Section 5, Real-World Impact, Shaping the After-Action Report. Ultimately, all of this, the 1600 hard stop, the verbal hot wash we just talked about, the rigorous collection of all those ICS forms, it all funnels into one ultimate destination, the official After-Action Report, or AAR. Coordination within the Standardized Emergency Management System, or SEMS, scales all the way from the field level up through local government, into the operational area, the OES region, and finally all the way up to the state. Your accurate local logs from this exercise support broader, official AAR data requirements that scale across this entire structure. Honestly, if the data is missing at the field level, the state's entire understanding of our emergency communication resilience is fundamentally compromised. So the bottom line is this: your exercise isn't over until your paperwork is completed and submitted. And please, consider this a very stern reminder from your exercise controller. Ensure your contact information is clearly printed on all final submitted forms. If our evaluators can't read your name or your agency, your data is completely orphaned. Now, if you absolutely cannot submit materials immediately following the hot wash, you've got to email them to the address on the screen as soon as humanly possible. This beacon exercise is designed to push you to the limit, to test your systems, and to really challenge your assumptions. But remember, surviving that simulated blackout, that is merely step one. The careful, accurate records we capture today are the exact things that will actually prepare us for the next real disaster. So as you head out into the exercise today, I want you to keep this one thought in the back of your mind. Are your logs detailed and accurate enough to save lives tomorrow? Thanks so much for joining this explainer, and good luck out there.